Devastating. That's been the impact of COVID-19 globally, including right here in Barbados. You only have to look at its effect on the country's main industry, tourism, to understand. Here in Barbados, thousands of people depend on tourism directly or indirectly just to earn a living. Today we take a look at the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Barbados's main economic driver, where we were and where we are now, from the administration's perspective to air carriers, and at the very core of it all, the workers. I'm Krystal Hoyte, and you're watching Tourism Rebounding. On any given day, planes from Barbados's main source markets could be seen landing at the Grantley Adams International Airport, filled with visitors ready to experience the island's beautiful beaches, the warmth of its people, and its distinct culture. In 2019, Barbados had one of its best years, welcoming over 700,000 visitors to the island, an average of 60,000 tourists per month. But as the coronavirus SARS-2 spread from China and was eventually declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, it decimated the travel industry, causing Barbados's arrival numbers to plunge. In fact, just 139 tourists arrived on island in April 2020. This was despite the borders remaining open. For some, travel was too risky. For others, it was too much of a hassle, as COVID-19 testing became mandatory and quarantine periods were at times longer than a typical visitor's vacation. Minister of Tourism and International Transport Lisa Cummins said the impact of the travel industry grinding to a halt was felt across the country.
The impact on the tourism sector has been something that has been intensely painful because we're not talking about the impact on the absence of airlift. We're not talking about planes not flying in the same way. We're not talking about visitors not coming. We're talking about the impact of all of those things happening on people who live among us. We're talking about thousands of Barbadians who found themselves without jobs. And without jobs, without money, and without money, they found themselves dealing with all kinds of personal issues that are real to all of us. And that's what I mean about it being painful. So COVID is not some far-fetched esoteric thing that happened to somebody else. It happened to all of us. But for many people, it happened far more painfully than it did in other sectors. And so tourism, we saw tourism enterprises, including in the accommodation sector, in 2020, find themselves existing on fumes from residual revenues from 2019. By the time 2021 rolled around, you had no residual revenues because 2020 has been a wash for most economies globally and certainly for Barbados. You had people who may have gone through their savings at the beginning of the pandemic because who would have imagined that 22 months in, we would still be dealing with the things that we started dealing with at the start of 2020. It really was a surreal experience. And it was painful on every level for everyone, and certainly for people who also had to then make decisions that affected the lives of other people. That painfulness took on an entirely different color because you have to be able to keep businesses afloat. And sometimes I've come across owners and property managers and leaders across the industry who had to make decisions that were terrible, that haunted them, but they had to make them. And they went home and they still had to deal with their families. And the emotional toll on everybody at every level, business, employee, employer, government, officials, has been tremendous. So the impact, I don't want to talk about the impact only as it relates to arrivals. It has been a tremendously personal and painful experience for the last 22 months in the tourism sector.
At the center of that pain were the workers. In 2020, we saw thousands of displaced tourism workers on the lifeline that is the National Insurance Scheme as the period for their unemployment benefits came to an end. The Mayor Motley-led administration rolled out the Barbados Employment Sustainable Transformation Program, BEST as we call it, offering relief.
The BEST program will be a maximum of a $300 million scheme for hotels and tourism facilities as a response to COVID-19. The largest fiscal stimulus package being offered to the country. It is intended to protect jobs, support the balance sheet of our companies in the tourism sector, and those of direct tourism services, and ultimately ensure that our physical infrastructure remains fit for when some level of normalcy returns. Barbados must be fully prepared for that moment. The government will make an investment in tourism firms which will enable these companies to re-engage all of their workers on 80% of their normal salary for up to 2 years should the need arise. Workers entering the scheme will not lose their existing rights to severance pay if they are laid off again at any point within the next 12 months.
But not all workers could take advantage of the BEST program, and those who were severed were forced to picket for their payout.
We were all willing to go with the program and get the 80%. We were losing 20% of our pay, so it would be a 20% pay reduction. We are willing to take that. We never wanted to be severed. We wanted to be employed. There are people who's been evicted from their homes, evicted, who is going to food banks to get food. And those are employees who has been working at this company for years.
I think they were treated very poorly, and it was embarrassing, to be very honest. You may be in a position where you cannot pay severance, but that does not mean you cannot communicate and be honest and don't force people to go on the street. There's no excuse for that, none. So where we don't have money, we gotta have humanity, and we have to be sensitive.
Throughout the years, the workers went beyond to ensure that the guests were treated right and happy and comfortable inside the hotels. So why is that the workers getting treated this way?
I'm not talking about any specific situation, but what it really requires is that you're honest and you say, I just don't have the resources. The biggest challenge that I saw and what I saw people complain about is the lack of communication. Tell me what is going on. I've been paying my NIS, it's been deducted. If it has not been paid over, if it has, or if there is an issue in that some of the processing through NIS took a little bit longer, tell us. So communication in that instance.
They say tourism is our business, let's play our part. And all of us here and others out there have paid their part. Why are they not paying the part to us now?
The Minister of Labour shall even come and visit the workers to find out what's really going on. Because we really need our money. It's as simple as that there.
And although the tourism industry is on the cusp of rebounding, the reality is it's been 22 difficult months for the men and women who work in this critical sector.
Yeah, I have had many sleepless nights, many sleepless nights. Now worrying about tomorrow, what you have to do tomorrow and how you're going to deal with it. I have had that.
That is Teresa Lewis, who dedicated 30 years of her life to the tourism sector before losing her job.
Well, COVID came in, and as of the 19th of March, we were sent home, awaiting, when we would be called back, and it never happened. So we had to go through the process of applying for your unemployment and then your redundancy papers.
Did you have any savings to rely on?
Look, I tried, to save as much as I could while I was working, but those 2 years, those last 2 years, it just took basically everything away, just in one clean sweep, and it's very hard now. At first, I started with my unemployment, and then I had to be asking my family, my sisters, my kids to assist as the time go by.
What has been the impact on your mental health?
Days you just don't want to face the day because you get up this morning, you're gonna get up, you have to worry about, the landlord coming today. She's on. What am I going to tell her? The post putting bills in your. Well, I just show you. You just have a bill here. The post bring a bill. How am I going to pay it? I don't have cash. You could ask people for, give me something to buy a chicken to cook. That will carry you 2 days, maybe 3 depends on what, how you eating. But you can't go and tell somebody lend you $200 to pay your light. You understand? $200 to pay your water. You understand what I mean? You need money.
Similar stories were told by many in the industry. When we return, we continue to take a look at the impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on Barbados' tourism industry and what the BEST program has been able to accomplish.
COVID-19 ravished economies across the globe. There's no question about that. But they ravished tourism-dependent economies very differently than any other economy. And if you layer on top of that a small island developing state, and you add the issues relating to climate change like hurricanes and volcanoes and all those things, we really took a beating.
As we look at the economic impact, I sat down with Senior Economic Advisor to the Barbados government, Dr. Kevin Greenidge at Central Bank. Dr. Greenidge, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on Barbados' economy?
Krystal, as we said before, and you heard reported many times, COVID basically destroyed the economy in 2020. In terms of tourism, between April and December, we lost 90% of our tourist arrivals, 90%. And because tourism make about 40% of our economy, both direct and indirect, that filtered through to other parts, and the economy collapsed about 18% in 2020. That would have had a spill-off effect, as we said before, on the revenues for government. So we lost about 600 million revenues. At the same time, we had to step up spending on Harrison Point, on building facilities, on medication, on PEPs, etc. All the COVID-related spending, providing support to households, to businesses, to the tune of about 4% almost of GDP. And that meant that we had to relax the fiscal, so the impact on the fiscal has been tremendous.
Dr. Greenidge, the Barbados Employment Sustainable Transformation Program, BEST as we call it, was put in place by this administration at the height of the pandemic to assist businesses and persons in the tourism industry. What has been done thus far under that program?
So, Krystal, you're quite correct. That program was put in place to help businesses impacted by the crisis. To date, and it had two components. There's the employment component, where businesses could keep their workers, etc., on their job, paying them about 80% of their salary. Even if there are no tourists around, etc., they still get to do things in the hotel, prepare, not keep, so that it helps the reopening. The hotel doesn't deteriorate. And then there was an investment component, which a hotel can use funds or the business to green and digitize and prepare better for the next tourism season, etc. To date, we have assisted, that's down to October, about 55 businesses with the employment component, payroll, and capital assistance to the tune of about 46 million. And that, in terms of numbers, would have saved about 2,200 jobs. So in other words, allow hotels and businesses to keep 2,200 persons employed during this pandemic, which is real assistance, yeah? 24 of those businesses that I talk about, of the 55 in the hotel and accommodation, but others were in restaurants, water sports, attractions, different things like that. At the same time, so that's the employment piece. In terms of the investment piece, 26 businesses were approved for this transformation investment into greening and PVs and whatever they need to get the business more energy efficient. So far, we have approved on the BEST program for that component about $14 million. And based on what we are seeing, is about an average of $5 million per month in terms of both payroll assistance and that kind of assistance. So it has done its work. It has helped to preserve employment, and it's helped businesses to prepare to reopen and be able to capture and get the best from the tourism season.
Perhaps one of the best examples of Barbados pivoting in the pandemic was the introduction of the Welcome Stamp initiative, described by many as an innovative tourism product, essentially allowing visitors to work where they vacationed. It was marketed globally and well received, taken advantage of by digital nomads, students, and the silver traveler.
So the Welcome Stamp is, I think, perhaps one of the hottest commodities that Barbados has branded. And everywhere we turn, People are coming to us and talking about that. And of course, the fact that other countries have developed their own versions of the welcome stamp after Barbados pioneered it, that too makes a statement. We have had close to, just in the last few months, 1,900 applications coming in from the welcome stamp. They have come in from all over the world, interestingly, our traditional markets and our non-traditional markets. So the US and the UK continue to be the top performers, as well as Canada, mainly because there's airlift. But we've also had applicants coming in from Africa, from India, from Australia, from New Zealand, all around the world. Because I like to say, like every diaper is a pamper and every SUV is a Jeep. Barbados is like that. Barbados is just this iconic, universal brand that has such value that I don't even think we really understand just how powerful the name Barbados is. And when we launch a product like the Welcome Stamp, people immediately think, I want to do this. So we've had people coming from all over the globe to do that. Those persons then come to Barbados. They get so fascinated by who we are and what we do, they decide, I want to buy a house. And so we've been seeing people not just coming for a welcome stamp and staying and buying food, renting a car, renting a house. No. They're buying houses. They're buying property and converting their investment into a commercial investment, where they're buying condos in partnerships with others. We've seen people who have made the decision that they want to create and to build new businesses out of Barbados, or to even shift headquarters of their companies to Barbados because they've had such an amazing time when they're here. Sometimes when we think about a visitor, we think about restaurants, attractions, and those kinds of things. The welcome stamp converts a visitor into an investor, and that's where the value comes from an initiative like the welcome stamp. And for the broader question that I was raising to you earlier about the overall structural transformation and the mindset shift that has been needed for the tourism sector.
How much revenue has the welcome stamp initiative earned Barbados thus far?
So down to October, we have roughly 10 million in fees. And that's just fees alone. So that's 10 million in fees, person applying to come for family or individual otherwise. But keep in mind that a welcome stamp, and we all know is a tourist coming person, they work here and it's probably up to 12 months, right? Now keep in mind that the average tourist uses stamp between 2 and 3 weeks. Or sometimes 1 week, depending on where they come from. So a welcome stamp visitor is staying, can be considered a one visitor. Welcome stamp can be considered maybe a 9 or 12-month tourist. In other words, they're going to spend for that number of months on hotel, on maybe accommodation, whether it be a hotel or most likely an apartment or something. They're going to spend on food, on transportation, on different things, and seeing the island and things. And they're doing that over a period of time. Most likely will have a car, and I've heard a few of them have actually bought property. So the value is not the 10 million. The value is the trickle-down effect throughout the economy that we not in a position to really measure. But if we take the normal estimates and say that the average tourist will spend maybe $2,000-3,000 US for his visit, don't multiply that up by you're here for 12 months, and you will get a feeling for the contribution that we have had.
Where are we now? As travel resumed and the world continues to adapt, countries are ready to restart their tourism industries. After a 2-year break, World Travel Market got underway, bringing together travel industry professionals from over 100 countries for the first time since the pandemic. And Barbados was there.
I think the most commonly used words strung together were restart tourism. Restart tourism. From wherever in the globe you came, the issue was restart tourism. Those two words went together all the time because that's really where the international community has been. And so World Travel Market was an amazing experience for everybody to sit together in small groups, but in large settings as well, to bring together not just the travel trade partners and the countries, but also global institutions like the UN World Tourism Organization that has been operating equally under the mantra, restart tourism and sustainable tourism. And the World Tourism and Travel Council, we also had all of the major partners there, World Tourism Network, all of them were there. And the conversations globally were, how can we work together to get our industry and people's lives dependent on the industry back again? So that was a big deal. But specific to Barbados, I think that's what you want to hear, and that's what I want to tell you about. Specific to Barbados, it was exciting for us because I think when we launched the first the vaccinated travelers protocols in May, I think it was the 9th of May, we immediately thereafter began the surge. And so we were all very anxious. And if it's one thing that COVID-19 has taught us living through this pandemic is that today you're up, tomorrow you're down. There's no predictability. There's no long-range planning. You kind of just never know what's going to happen. So you plan for the best and hope not to get the worst, or you plan in spite of the potential for the worst. And then July came around and we started to see summer travel booming. By October, we were becoming really encouraged. I think we've already seen a lot of the product of the work of the tourism team by bringing in new airlift. So you have had Aer Lingus coming in for the first time, KLM coming in for the first time. So we've opened up gateways out of Manchester on Aer Lingus and out of Amsterdam for the first time on KLM. But we also have the American Airlines increasing the number of flights that they're carrying. British Airways, one of our major partners, for the longest time, we were only flying out of Gatwick. It took the pandemic, and we said it to them when we met with them in the margins of World Travel Market. We went out to their headquarters at Heathrow, and it took them a pandemic to open a gateway to Barbados from Heathrow. That then opens up travel into all of Europe, because before you would fly in from Barbados to Gatwick and then have to transfer to Heathrow, and then from Heathrow everywhere else. So that opens up Europe, it opens up Africa, it opens up Asia from the UK at Heathrow. We also have Virgin Atlantic. They're already flying, also from Manchester and from Gatwick. And I'm happy to share that in a few weeks, we will be welcoming back in Virgin Atlantic again, but this time from Edinburgh. So we're going to be having new airlift coming from our traditional partner, Virgin Atlantic, from Edinburgh. So we're really excited about that. Come next year, we're going to be announcing a little bit of something new, and we will have a new carrier flying in the summer months from Madrid. So we will again be having travel for the first time from Spain. And so all of those are meetings that we were having in World Travel Market and prior. So we have that happening. We, over the summer months, over the December months as well, the festive season, we're expecting to welcome back in WestJet. WestJet is going to be flying back in for the festive season. And British Airways, I'm going to go back to them. They have put on an additional 10 flights over the course of the 2-week festive season period.
Air carrier partners have expressed confidence in the Barbados market despite COVID-19.
I'm Hannah Swift, Country Manager for the Caribbean for Virgin Atlantic. With regards to how COVID-19 has impacted the airline, I think anybody who works in tourism or any of the feeder industries that go into tourism will know that it's had a massive impact on us. But what I would say is that we've seen such high demand to the Caribbean that we were able to restart our flights back in August of last year into Barbados, and then the wider Caribbean followed. So we are seeing that people in the UK and beyond are desperate to get some winter sun, and they're really keen to come out to the Caribbean and Barbados in particular.
There is clearly a demand. Tell me about the new flights, particularly the one coming out of Edinburgh.
Really exciting, actually, to be Europe's only carrier that flies direct from Scotland to the Caribbean. We are launching on the 18th of December with 2 flights a week, and we've got some fun things planned for those first Scottish arrivals on island. We're also flying in and out of Manchester 4 times a week, and then up to Christmas we'll be flying about 12 times a week in and out of London Heathrow. So there's going to be a lot of flights coming in from the UK over the next few weeks.
How has Virgin Atlantic adapted? What measures have been put in place to ensure the safe travel of all on board?
The safety and security of our customers and our staff is absolutely paramount at Virgin Atlantic. So we have increased and enhanced our cleaning methods right from check-in, when you're on board, and obviously all parts in between. We actually have a really cool thing that you'll find on board, which is our wellness kit. So you will find this on your seat as you get on board, and it includes some masks, some hand sanitizer, and some disinfectant wipes. So even though we're already cleaning and we're fogging and doing all those things, we've added that extra bit in for you as well.
What trends are you seeing in the market? Have there been any changes?
Absolutely, and I think the great thing for Barbados is what we're seeing is that people are wanting to stay longer and they're wanting to spend a little bit more. So for those people in the UK and beyond who've been locked up for a long time, they're ready, they've saved some money, they really want to have that dream holiday, and they're definitely picking Barbados for some winter sun.
Given all of this, Minister Cummings, what are the winter season projections?
Barbados's winter season is extremely strong. We are performing extremely strongly. And if I were to give you some numbers, I would say to you that by the end of 2021, because of all of the work that has gone into building back our sector, we are going to be at around just under 87% of our 2019 capacity. So what does that mean? It means that 2020 was a wash. 2020 doesn't exist on any calendar anywhere, right? But 2019 was a flagship year. 2019, we had record arrivals and so on. So can you imagine that we are here? January didn't really happen for us because we didn't have Christmas, and right before Old Year's, we went into this surge. February was February. By March, we were there. May, we were now preparing to have new protocols. But between July and October and November, we have been able to so push for this recovery in collaboration with all of our partners that our numbers by the end of this winter season are going to take us almost equivalent to where we were in terms of performance for 2019. That's not just a testimony to our work and the efforts of the entire team of tourism here at home and abroad, but it's a testimony of confidence in our markets by our partners, our travel partners who have come back to the table and who have said, we're here with you, we're standing with you, we're working with you, and we believe in Barbados.
So, air travel has dominated our conversation thus far. Tell me about the cruise industry, the relationships that we would have formed mid-pandemic when so many cruise ships would have been imported here. Have they resulted in any success for us thus far?
Let me start by saying to you that I think what Barbadians remember most at the end of perhaps 2020 or in the middle of 2020 was when the ships started to sail back out of Barbados. And there was one ship in particular, the Ida Perla. And I think I was emotional about that as well, because I remember them leaving and the captain, Boris, sending us a beautiful message. And I remember at the time I had sent to him and the crew gift baskets, each of them from Barbados, saying, we're here, we're happy that you were here with us, and we wish you well on your voyage. And he sent us the most beautiful video. And then you remember the lighting up of the ship. Well, she's back. She's back. The Ida Perla will be back in Barbados Wednesday. And so we're preparing to welcome her back in the most fitting way, because that's something special between Barbados and them. And she is going to be captained again by Captain Morris. So we are looking forward to welcoming that. And we're hoping that Barbadians will join us in welcoming the Ida Perla back to Barbados. But by the time the cruise season began, we actually started, as you would recall, inaugurals, well, not inaugurals, but I would probably say testing out what was going to be happening. In June of this year, we began cruising on a trial basis. All the cruises have been functioning at around 50% capacity as a restriction, not by choice, but as a restriction, so that we're able to get things going again. There is a requirement for the crew and the passengers to be at a 95% vaccinated level. And so far we have been having cruises sailing with all persons vaccinated. The 95% is ready to allow for children who are under the age where they're no longer eligible and they're traveling with their families. So you have that. The actual cruise season itself, the normal winter cruise season, began on the 27th of October, and we have seen our partners coming back to the table in a huge way. So Royal Caribbean, for example, who before home ported one vessel out of Barbados, is now home porting 5 vessels out of Barbados. We will have, by the end of the cruise season, 17 inaugurals with new vessels coming into Barbados. So did it reap any benefits for Barbados? I would have to say yes, it did. And our teams have worked really hard and built the relationships from then until now, maintained the relationships that we built. And Prime Minister Motley, along with the President and CEO of Royal Caribbean, Mr. Michael Bailey, have jointly co-chaired the America's Cruise Task Force. And that really was the platform within which we followed both what was happening globally and what we wanted to see here in the Americas, and definitely what Barbados would be providing for locally. So the combination of those international, those hemispheric, and then those local engagements really have put us in a position where we're also looking forward to having a winter cruise season. It's not going to be as strong as 2019 because obviously in this instance, while airlines are flying at 100% capacity for the most part, cruises are flying at 50% capacity, and we're not expecting that by January or so. We're probably going to be around 80 something, almost just on a 90% capacity on the ships, but they're not going to be sailing at capacity. So if you have a ship that, say, is used to sailing with 3,000 people on board, you're probably not going to get more than between 1,100 or 100,000 to 1,500 passengers on board that ship. So same ships, but lower capacity coming in, just to make sure that we get through this initial season safely.
We're in the winter season now. We're seeing the tourists arriving. Grantley Adams International Airport is very busy, as well as our seaports. What are the winter projections?
Krystal, as I mentioned earlier, we have about 70 from January to October, about 80,000 visitors is coming to Grantley Adams Airport. They have nothing to do with cruise. Have come to our tourists, and based on what we're looking in terms of projections, we can reach close to 200,000 by the end of the year, plus some up and down, somewhere in that region. To me, it's a good sign. The economy is poised to recover. We were hearing from the government report about 2%. We think it could be even a little bit more than 2%. But all in all, definitely recovery. And as I said before, it hinges on how we handle our domestic situation in terms of COVID, etc. We have prepared in terms of seats, new airlines coming, flights are regular now, and the other markets, people are looking to travel. And so, all in all, I think we definitely is on an upward trajectory.
The impact of COVID-19 on tourism-dependent countries has been difficult. It has depressed economies and displaced people. Now, as the industry rebounds, diversifies, and more visitors come to Barbados' shores, there's a sense of hope and renewed confidence that the island will rebuild better than it was before. I'm Krystal Hoyte. Thank you for joining me.